All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Before I start the presentation, I'd like to ask a quick question to the audience. Who here is already familiar with native in-game ads? Put your hands up if you are. 1, 2, 3. All right. Just a few people then. My talk should be insightful. My name is Antoine Jullemier. I'm the VP Gaming at Bitstack. And today I will be speaking about how our native in-game ads are effective for developers and how you can grow your game with them. So I'll start with a quick introduction about our company, for the one who don't know us. I will then touch on the growth of that format through the last decades, and how we came to a point where last week IAB launched the first guidelines for measurement when it comes to intrinsic in-game advertising. And I'll then finish by giving you tips and tricks to grow your game with that new medium. So quick video to show you some of the capabilities of our technology to start. All right, so we were the first modern native in-game ads technology to work with games to bring programmatic in-game advertising in their games. So we actually got started in 2017 when we started our partnership with a football manager from Sports Interactive Sega. And we actually monetized programmatically the LED banners around the pitch. And since that time, we have worked with many developers and publishers to bring real-world brand into their games, fitting in the experience, without never disrupting the player experience, because that's native. And since that time, we've now 80 staff across the US and Europe, public company, and we'll be very lucky to be guided by some legend in the industry that help us to shape the vision of the company moving forward. So when we created Bitstack, the goal was really to append what we call dynamic control over outcoded advertisements, which have been around in games for decades now. So the three pillars of the company were first, native proprietary in-game technology. So there is tons of technical stuff that's happening on the back end of the game to make it flawless, and that tech sits within an SDK, which is nowadays available through Unity, Unreal, or all the main engines for PC, mobile, and console. Second part is around the immersion. So funny enough, we actually started to work with AAA games before jumping into mobile. So our tech allows you to get a hyper-realistic content rendering, no matter if you've got a racing game, a stadium game, or more casual games on mobile, for example. And the third point is around we are an AdTech company, but a platform management solution as well. So we allow our partners to streamline any content into their games using our hyper-trafficking technology. So that's the three pillars of Bitstack. On this video, you can see a bit more examples. And the beauty of the format is that we can basically append and control any kind of asset that sits within a dynamic environment. So that could be billboard, bus stop, trackside, LED banners, any kind of format that makes sense and that you can see today in our day-to-day life, when you watch a game on TV or when you walk through the streets, for example. And so that's a seamless, direct or programmatic advertising that can't be ignored. As you can see, it's part of the game. It looks like real. And we want to create the illusion that that's not advertising for the players. And the most of your categories have always been racing or stadium. But as you can see here, we've now expanded these categories to metaverse or shooter games, application games, all these categories make sense today to be used. And very happy to work with some of the leading studios, including Take-Two, Codemasters, and on mobile, Nanobit, Nordus, and many other partners we have since we got started. And on the demand side, we have a market leader sales footprint, which have secured exclusive relationship with all the big media agencies, which give Bitstack access to plenty of premium brands from banking, travels, FMCG, or fashion. And we put all these brands into our games partner inventories. So I don't know if you remember last year, the IAB launched its guide to gaming, which was differentiating all the ad formats that you can find on games. By in the game, we were looking at all the formats, all the messaging which could alter in a positive way the experience, and just like influence the game experience for the players. So native in-game ads like Billboard is a perfect example. And by around the game, we are looking at reward video, for example, which influence gameplay, but not inside the gameplay itself, more around it. And at Bitstack, we're very fan of combining our native format with rewarded, which is not intrusive. You decide to watch it. And we think that these two powerful formats can live in harmony together within one single game. That's why we have decided to launch this format a few months ago to support our mobile partners. And that's quite powerful for a brand to be sitting with these two formats. So looking ahead, what we want to do is blend advertising, meaning one brand, two formats. That's just to increase the brand penetration. It means that you play a game, you see a billboard with Bitstack on the background, or whatever brand, and then when you decide to watch the video to win something in the game, for example, or get your rewards, then you would see the same brand. And we have conducted studies that demonstrated that combining these two formats led to an attention per 1,000 impression almost 3 times higher than just with rewarded video, for example. Now, I'd like to touch on the growth of this medium over the last decades, because if you've been around in the 80s, I was not, but you saw the birth of ads into games, which was very much hard-coded at the time. So Budweiser was an example in the game Taper, which was a slot machine game, and all these ads were not programmatic. It was hard-coded in the game, and everybody from all over the world would see the same ad. There was no personalizations. So that was the early stages. And then moving into the 90s, the medium grew. We saw better looking ads, better integration. If you remember that game Crazy Taxi, you had different brands lined up throughout the game. Then in the 2000s, with the rise of internet and online games, advertisers and brands had more opportunities to advertise in game, and we saw the first segmentation. So ads could be swap in and swap out in games, but that was not really programmatic yet. And it's only in the late 2010s, early 2020s, that we saw the real shift into the market, and we saw the second breath for ads in game. So from product placement and billboards, we moved toward more cosmetic activations. And a very good example, but quite old already, is the Travis Scott in Fortnite, for example. That was like one of the first. And since we've been so many activation in many games and metaverse like Roblox or Fortnite, etc. So this market is evolving, and it's been on the radar for all these decades now. And while some companies have dismissed it as a temporary trend, others have been smart enough to see the true potential of that medium, to a point where experts are planning this market to reach almost $18 billion by 2030. And from hard-coded stuff, we now see AdTech company like Bitstack, which can allow brands to bid programmatically and simultaneously on games, offering geo-targeting options to reach out to their customers, to reach out to the players. And that's just the beginning, basically. So this market is evolving, everybody knows that, but what are the main reasons which can explain that growth? From a game point of view, there are a couple of reasons. The first one is around the experience, which is paramount. So more and more we're talking about ad insensitivity, ads which are too numerous in games, all these pop-up and full-screen ads, which kind of break the experience for the players. The goal of this format of native game ads is really to enhance the experience, to create a more meaningful, game experience for the players. And that's why it's very important. We actually saw that in the UK only, 7 players on 10 were neutral or positive toward native in-game ads, in mobile or the console, other platforms. And if you look at console only, 22% of the players were, saying that they would be more likely to buy a product if it was advertised in their game, which is a good sign and is predicting good thing for what's coming. Second point is around the changing in data landscape. As you know, with the recent introduction of the OTT by Apple or Google's deprecation of third-party cookies, developers are now looking at emerging options and alternatives to compensate for that loss of revenues. So they're looking at audio ads, in-game ads, and that's why it's more and more, it's burgeoning into a game changer for developers. Third point, it used to be quite complicated to implement in games. As I say, that was hard-coded. Now it's way more accessible for publishers. You can, just take the SDK for Unity, put in your game and start monetizing any placements. That's very easy. And as I said, we can work on mobile, but then other platform as well. And the last point is around the incremental revenue. So the good thing about native ads is that it's not going to add another network into your mediation stack. That's going to be purely incremental. So we can monetize placements that have never been monetized in a game before. A billboard, a track site, like all these placements in the game. So you can really live in harmony with your interstitial, rewarded banners, whatever traditional formats you're using today on your game. Now, from a brand's point of view, it's interesting to understand why more and more brands are jumping into gaming and looking at more innovative formats to reach out to the audience. And while it's obvious for, I guess, all of us here that gaming is a bigger and bigger medium in a media plan, it's not that obvious for brands yet. But fortunately, we have more and more studies that demonstrate that I think it's like a third of the population play games. Most of the players on mobile are actually women. So we're getting far from the old stereotypes of the gamers that, it's never leaving his room. So progressively, we see a shift of budget toward gaming and through like these innovative, ad formats. And if you compare gaming with TV only, TV doesn't have the impact that it used to have in the past. We saw that 98% of people watching TV in the UK were actually looking at another screen at the same time. And 34% of them were actually playing games at the tip of their fingers, which demonstrates that, gaming is more and more important. And on the right, you can see here an extract from Lumen eye tracking technology that we use on some of our games, and that basically showing that our formats are eye-catching and can increase drive a lot of attention from the players. These are the hot points that show where players are actually watching when they play games. So this demonstrates, and bring more confidence around advertisers that these formats are impactful and actually seen by the players while they play, without never breaking the experience, because it's native, it's click-free ads, you can't really interact with them apart from watching them. Another part is around the measurement, which has always been very important for brands monetizing in games. And native is very different from display. You have a lot of tangibles like occlusion, camera speed, that can't be really measured. So BitStack has been working closely with IAB or MRC to bring more standards, in that growing and very competitive market now, to a point where, as I said last week, IAB launched the first measurement guidelines for intrinsic in-game ads or native in-game ads. And that demonstrates that actions are being taken in the market to support that new medium, and that BitStack, among other companies, is now respecting the highest standards when it comes to programmatic in games, increasing the overall experience for players, bringing more transparency, and tackling any fraud, while ensuring that GDPR and all the privacy law are being respected at the same time. And aside from that, we have been helping advertisers to understand the true power of this format. And comparing to display, we saw that in-game ads were seen longer. We had a longer engagement. Post-campaign, the brand recall and the purchase intent was really more important. And all these KPIs demonstrate that there is more effectiveness for that format in the market, and more transparency and trust means more confidence as well from advertisers, which are willing to engage more with the medium. Now I've covered that growth, I want to give a few tips and tricks for any developers that would be willing to try the format if they haven't done so before. First one, I know that if there are any developers in that room, SDK might give you cold sweat, but that's now a plug-and-play integration to integrate native in-game ads. You have multiple companies, it's lightweight SDK, you can work with Unity and Unreal, that's very easy. And looking at BitStack specifically, we have what we call the white glove onboarding. So we won't let you alone discover that format. We have quite a rigorous process where we'll help you to define the best placement in the game, make the integration, and then offer a QA to make sure that there is no latency or no crash in your game before you release it. Point number two, you need to protect the artwork to respect the player. These formats are really here to increase the immersion of the game, bring more authenticity. So you don't want to break the experience. If you were to put a billboard promoting the latest smartphone on the game set in a medieval village, that's not gonna, that's not a good idea, I think. But if you put that billboard in a game like Cyberpunk, it's great. I mean, you feel like it's real, because you could see that today on the city, which make it effective for the game. So you really need to be careful when you do that, and to respect the whole experience. Point number three, you need to offer a seamless brand experience. And I mean, my advice would be to try to work with partners, AdTechs that can provide like a top-notch ad quality. For example, you don't want to change the size of the format during the same session. And if you put like what we call an ad refresh, make sure to put it only in games where they make sense, like a stadium, for example. If you have LED banners around the pitch, you can refresh it at every 10, 30 seconds, as you can see today in reality. This screenshot here is an example from Mad Skill Motocross 3 from Tuberia. And what they did is that they implemented a billboard at the start of every race, which emulates what we can see today in reality, if you watch like motocross race. And we worked together for like almost 2 years now. They have never received any complaints from the players because, it just looks super real for them. And point number four, just like sit back and enjoy a sustainable revenue stream. It's really bringing incremental revenue on top. That's not going to be cannibalizing any of your existing strategy. And it all depends about the game, the content available, the audience, and the seasonality. But looking at the very strong quarter for brand advertising, like Q4 last year, our partners, Tiberia, have generated a tremendous amount of revenue from that channel. If you look at all the revenue for that period, BitStack represented 32% of this revenue. And that was including in-app purchases, rewarded, interstitial, and we actually doubled the revenue they made on rewarded and interstitial combined, which, demonstrate that you can start making serious revenue from that channel nowadays, using a tech company like BitStack. And that's the end of my presentation. If you have any question, please shoot. Otherwise, we have a booth P5 over there, so we'd be very happy to meet you and discuss the game if you'd like to, give it a try. And thank you for listening to me. No questions? All right, cool. Thank you.